Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Storyline English. It's so good to have you here. Let's take a breath together. Now, imagine for a moment it is a very hot summer day. The sun is strong. The air is warm. You are thirsty, and you want something cold. You open your refrigerator, and there it is. Cold water, cold food, cold ice. Easy, simple, normal. But 200 years ago, this was not normal. 200 years ago, keeping food cold was very difficult. Ice was rare. Ice was expensive. And one man decided to change everything. This is the story of ice. Where it came from, how it traveled across the ocean, and how it changed the world forever. Stay with me. This is a journey you will not forget. Our story begins in the early 1800s in a place called Boston in the United States of America. Boston is a city near the ocean. In winter, Boston is very cold. The lakes and rivers near the city freeze. A thick layer of ice covers the water. Most people looked at this ice and thought, nothing special. It was just part of winter. It came every year, and it melted every spring. But one young man looked at that ice and saw something different. He saw an opportunity. His name was Frederic Tudor. He was born in 1783 in a wealthy family in Boston. Frederic was not a quiet, careful boy. He was a dreamer. He liked big ideas. He liked to imagine things that no one else imagined. When he was young, he did not finish school. He did not follow the path that other young men followed. He wanted to do something bold, something new. And one day, when he was just 21 years old, he had an idea. An idea that everyone around him thought was completely crazy. He wanted to cut ice from the frozen lakes near Boston and sell it. Not just sell it in Boston. No. He wanted to send it by ship all the way to the hot islands of the Caribbean. He wanted to bring ice to people who had never seen ice in their lives. His friends laughed at him. His family was worried. The newspapers called it a foolish dream. But Frederic Tudor did not stop. And that is where our adventure truly begins. In the year 1806, Frederic Tudor loaded his first ship with ice. The ice came from a frozen lake near Boston. Workers cut large blocks of ice from the surface of the lake. They lifted the heavy blocks onto the ship. Then the ship sailed south toward the island of Martinique in the Caribbean Sea. It was a long journey, and Frederic had one very serious problem. He did not know how to stop the ice from melting. He had no special technology. He had no refrigerator. He only had wood and sawdust and hope. Sawdust is the small pieces of wood that fall when you cut wood. Frederic learned that if you pack ice tightly inside sawdust, it melts much more slowly. This was a simple discovery, but it was very important. When the ship arrived in Martinique, some of the ice had melted, but some of it was still there. Frederic sold what he could, but he did not make money. He lost money. He went back to Boston and tried again. And again, he lost money. People in the Caribbean did not understand what to do with ice. They had never used it before. They did not know how to keep it. They did not know how to enjoy it. Frederic had to teach them. He had to show them how to use ice to keep drinks cold, to keep food fresh, to make life more comfortable. This was not just a business, it was a lesson, a discovery. And slowly, very slowly, people began to understand. They began to want ice. And that changed everything. As the years passed, Frederic Tudor learned more and more. He learned how to cut ice faster. He learned how to store it better. He learned how to pack it so that very little melted during the long journey by ship. He worked with a man named Nathaniel Wyeth, who was very clever with tools and machines. Together, they invented a better way to cut ice. They used a special tool, like a plow, that moved across the frozen lake and cut the ice into perfect squares. This made the work much faster. Workers could now cut thousands of blocks of ice in one day. The ice was stored in large wooden buildings called ice houses. These buildings were built near the lakes. Inside, the ice blocks were packed tightly together with sawdust between them. The sawdust kept the cold inside. It was a simple system, but it worked very well. Ice could now be stored for many months. Frederic began to send ships not just to the Caribbean, but to cities in the southern United States, where the weather was hot and the summers were very long. He sent ice to New Orleans. He sent ice to Charleston. And people loved it. Cold drinks became popular. Cold food became possible. The ice trade was growing. Frederic Tudor was no longer a joke. He was becoming a businessman that people respected. And yet, the biggest part of his story was still ahead. Because soon, Frederic Tudor would send his ice to the other side of the world. In 1833, Frederic Tudor did something that seemed impossible. He loaded a ship called the Tuscany with 180 tons of ice. That is a huge amount of ice. And he sent it on a journey of over 25,000 kilometers, all the way to Calcutta in India. India is a very hot country. The journey took 4 months. 4 months on the ocean, in hot weather, with 180 tons of ice on the ship. Many people said the ice would melt completely before the ship arrived. They said it was a waste of time. They said it was another foolish dream. But Frederic did not listen to them. He believed in his system. He believed in sawdust. He believed in careful packing and careful planning. And when the ship arrived in Calcutta, most of the ice was still there. The people of Calcutta were amazed. They had never seen natural ice before. For them, ice was something from another world. British people living in India had dreamed of cold drinks in the terrible heat. And now, thanks to Frederic Tudor, that dream was real. The ice sold quickly. The journey was a success. News spread across India, across England, across the world. The ice trade had gone global. This was the turning point. After Calcutta, many people wanted to be part of the ice business. Ships from Boston carried ice to cities in South America, to Australia, to China, to Hong Kong. Ice from cold New England lakes was traveling to every warm corner of the world. And a young man's crazy dream had become one of the most important businesses of the 19th century. The ice trade changed how people lived. Before the ice trade, keeping food cold was very difficult. Meat, fish, and vegetables went bad very quickly in warm weather. People got sick from eating bad food. Life was harder. But with ice, everything changed. Shops and restaurants began to use ice boxes, wooden boxes lined with metal where ice was placed to keep food cold. These were the first refrigerators. Farmers could now keep their milk and butter fresh for longer. Fishermen could keep their fish cold and sell it in cities far away. Hospitals discovered that ice helped sick people feel better in hot weather. Doctors began to use ice to reduce fever. Ice became connected to health, to comfort, and to modern life. The ice trade also created many jobs. In Boston and the surrounding areas, thousands of men worked in the ice industry. They cut ice in winter. They stored ice in spring. They loaded ships in summer. They sold ice all year. Whole communities grew around the ice business. And Frederic Tudor, the man everyone laughed at, became very wealthy. He became known as the Ice King. That was his nickname, the Ice King of Boston. He had started with nothing but an idea, and he had built an industry that touched every part of daily life. But this story does not end with Frederic Tudor, because the ice trade continued to grow, and it continued to change the world in ways that even Frederic could not have imagined. The natural ice trade lasted for many decades, but slowly, in the late 1800s, a new invention began to change everything once again. Scientists and engineers discovered how to make ice using machines. This was called artificial ice. You did not need a frozen lake. You did not need winter. You did not need workers cutting blocks by hand. The machine made ice anywhere, at any time. At first, the natural ice companies were not worried. Their ice was cheaper. Their system was well known. But the machines got better and cheaper. And more people chose machine-made ice. By the early 1900s, the natural ice trade began to disappear. And by the middle of the 20th century, almost every home in the developed world had an electric refrigerator. The ice that Frederic Tudor once shipped across the ocean was now made at home, quietly, in a small box in the kitchen. The journey from frozen lake to electric refrigerator took about 150 years. It was a journey of discovery, of hard work, of imagination, and of change. And it all began with one man who looked at a frozen lake and saw something that no one else could see. What does this story teach us? It teaches us that big ideas often look foolish at the beginning. It teaches us that failure is part of the journey. Frederic Tudor failed many times, but he kept going. He kept learning, and he changed the world. As an English learner, you are on your own journey. Some days are easy, some days are hard. But every story you listen to is one more step forward. Every word you understand is a small piece of ice that you carry with you. Thank you so much for listening today, my friend. If this story helped you learn something new, please leave a comment below and tell me what you discovered. Subscribe to Storyline English so you never miss a new adventure. And come back soon, because there are so many more stories waiting for you here. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep going.